On Tuesday, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz endorsed a proposal for a Swedish-style pensions fund, where contributions from workers and employers would be invested in capital markets and financial assets to pay future pensions. This is one of a raft of proposals being made as part of Merz's sweeping economic reform agenda, designed to lift Germany out of its 5-year economic stagnation, the longest period of economic inactivity in 7 decades, which also includes reforms to health, public investment, and defense spending. So in this video, we'll explain Merz's economic reforms, what they're trying to address, and whether they can work. European politicians don't really talk about the energy transition anymore, but that doesn't mean that it isn't happening. In fact, Europe has quietly redoubled its efforts at decarbonisation. In the latest issue of our magazine, we look at this rare good news, and why the energy transition has ended up looking very different from the one once envisioned. That's just one of the 80 pages in the magazine, because there's more to Too Long than you'd expect. Purchase your copy by clicking the link in the description. We'll start with some quick context on the German economy. Back in February 2025, Merz's centre-right Christian Democratic Union, or CDU, and its affiliated Bavarian party, the CSU, won the German federal election with 28.5% of the vote. The hard-right Alternative for Deutschland, or AfD, came in second with 20.8%, double their vote share from the 2021 election, while the centre-left Social Democratic Party, or SPD, finished in third with 16.4%, their worst result in a federal election since 1887. The results were largely seen as a reflection of former SPD Chancellor Olaf Scholz's struggles with the economy. Scholz's term coincided with an unstable geopolitical environment, with Russia launching its full-scale invasion of Ukraine just 2.5 months after Scholz became Chancellor, sparking an energy and inflationary crisis that hit the German economy particularly hard. The subsequent rise in energy prices undermined both German consumer confidence and the international competitiveness of German industry, which had been the backbone of Germany's export-led economy since the turn of the millennium. As such, over the past 5 years, Germany's economy has stagnated, growing by just 0.1% since 2019, compared to 12% for the US economy over the same time period, and 4% for the euro area as a whole. You can see the impacts of this economic crisis on Germany's manufacturing output. Since 2018, Germany's manufacturing industry, one of the engines of Germany's economic growth, has been in continuous decline. Even after the pandemic, when foreign demand, especially from China, rose, German manufacturing exports failed to rise accordingly. This predicament has been exacerbated by weak domestic demand. A huge drop in construction, for instance, has led to a significant drop in demand for industrial goods, while a rise in financing costs has dampened general investment activity. Moreover, while private sector investment is pretty high in Germany, most of this happens in the car industry, and public sector investment has long lagged below the European average. Today, German infrastructure, including roads, public transport, and internet, is in dire need of repair, and Germany's growth has lagged behind the EU's by an average of 1.8 percentage points over the past 5 years. Germany is also facing other long-term structural challenges. Its working-age population is set to shrink over the coming decades, and in part due to a high rate of part-time workers, Germany currently works the fewest hours per capita in the OECD, 22% fewer than Italy in 2024 and 12% fewer than the UK. This is why Merz has made reviving the economy one of his top priorities. The word investment appears more than 70 times in the German government's 2025 coalition deal, in relation to trade, social housing, infrastructure, railways, AI, and more, showing Merz's emphasis on kickstarting growth. So what are the actual reforms being proposed? Well, there seem to be 4 main areas where Merz is focusing: healthcare, pensions, infrastructure, and defense. So let's take each of those in turn. The first set of reforms is around pensions. As we mentioned earlier, the Pensions Commission, set up by Merz, published its report on Tuesday, proposing a Swedish-style pensions fund with a mandatory 2% contribution from workers and employers, which would be, quote, managed centrally and invested in capital markets. At the moment, Germany uses a simple system where workers' contributions pay directly for pensions, but this is unsustainable due to Germany's shrinking working-age population, with 20 million workers set to retire over the next 10 years, while only 12.5 million are set to enter the labour market. As such, the proposed new system aims to invest contributions into a fund that invests in interest-bearing assets over time, ensuring that in the long term there's enough money to fund the pensions. The fund will also be used to invest in public infrastructure, which we'll come onto in a moment, and encourage a culture of investment into capital markets. Alongside this, Merz's Pension Commission has also proposed other measures, including raising the retirement age from 64 currently, a move that will likely provoke backlash from the unions, as well as linking the statutory retirement age, 67 currently, to the country's life expectancy, and withdrawing incentives to those who retire early. As we've seen in other European countries, most notably France, pensions reform is a politically difficult issue, so we'll have to see whether Merz can drum up enough public and parliamentary support for these major reforms. The second set of reforms is to health. In April, Merz announced a new draft healthcare law, which will include a new tax on sugary drinks from 2028, bringing in an estimated 450 million euros a year, used to fund prevention programs, a rise in the cost of prescription drugs for people with health insurance, an increase in insurance for non-working domestic partners, with notable exceptions, cuts to advertising for state health insurance companies, and a cap on health executives' pay. The government will also exclude cannabis and alternative medicine from health insurance coverage. The third area is public infrastructure investment. For years, as we mentioned earlier, German public investment has long lagged below other European countries, contributing to deteriorating transport networks and persistent bottlenecks in rail, road, and digital infrastructure. Merz is seeking to reverse this trend through a major public spending program, backed by a 500 billion euro special infrastructure fund, and is also a strong proponent of the EU's push to build stronger and more integrated capital markets, having previously called for a European stock exchange, in order to increase financing options at the European level and encourage long-term investment. The fourth and final area of Merz's economic reforms is defence. Back in spring 2025, before Merz even officially became Chancellor, his CDU party passed a huge constitutional change through Parliament to exempt all defence and security spending from Germany's strict borrowing limit. This has led to a massive rearmament push, intended to kickstart the economy by boosting industry and manufacturing, with the government recently announcing its first ever post-war military strategy. Ultimately though, as with all of Merz's economic reforms, these might be good and necessary steps, but the results may come too late for his own party to reap the electoral benefits. The German Council of Economic Experts expects growth to remain sluggish for the next few years, even with Merz's proposed reforms, forecasting GDP growth of 0.5% in 2026 and 0.9% in 2027. As such, Merz's reforms should be seen as laying the groundwork for a long-term effort to reverse Germany's economic stagnation, rather than as a quick fix to the country's problems. The latest issue of our magazine is out now, and if you want our best value ever, subscribing and using code SUMMER26 gets you your first copy for as cheap as £4.99, as well as 20% off as long as you stay subscribed. I told you about one of the articles at the start of this video, but this issue is truly jam-packed with content from all around the world. Obviously, the headline section is our rundown of Trump's wars around the world, discussing all of the different countries and regions that have faced Trump's military wrath, going nation by nation through our timeline, and reaching the ultimate question, has Trump created the modern holy war? From there, we dive into our regional sections, starting with the UK, where we unpack the results of the recent elections, take a look at the UK's odd foreign posture, and discuss if Britain has become ungovernable. Then in our EU section, we discuss how Russia's sphere of influence is fading, why Europe's energy transition isn't what you'd expect, as well as looking at the Euro's missing members. Finally, in the global section, we discuss whether we're seeing echoes of the First World War, what's next for Iran, as well as what really came from the Gen Z protests we saw emerging last year. That's not even everything. With this 80-page issue, our joint longest ever, there's even more to read than I've been able to mention here. So click the link in the description to learn more and grab your copy today.